This is the Finance and Operations Committee meeting of the Nashua Board of Education. It is Monday, August 12th, 2019, and we are in the Nashua High School North Boardroom. It is now 6:01. Can you take the roll call, please, Mr. Guarino?
Okay, Ms. Oden?
Here.
Mr. Mosher?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mr. Mosher is joining us by telephone. Are you by yourself tonight?
I certainly am.
Okay. Mr. Guarino is here as alternate. Also, we have Ms. Raymond and Ms. Timmons.
Was Mr. Kaufman called?
No,
No.
I got no call.
We have Mr. Donovan, Mr. Smith, and we have a quorum.
Okay, good. The first item on the agenda is the Boy Scout Eagle Project at New Searles Elementary School. Come on up.
And when you speak into press the button so the green light is on, then we'll be able to hear you.
They're already on.
Great.
Okay, and if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your project.
Good evening. My name is Connor Lucci. I am 16, and I'm entering my junior year at Nashua South. I am a Life Scout and Eagle Scout candidate from Troop 773, located at St. Christopher's Parish here in Nashua. I appear before you this evening in order to gain your support for my Eagle project. My project will be to enhance what I am calling the Husky Pup Playground behind New Searles Elementary School. As an alumni of New Searles who went through the sensory program, I wanted to give back to the school where I received so much. The reason I'm appearing so late in the process is that when I met with Mr. Harding, he told me he would take care of all of these approvals, and all I would have to do is my fundraising and my project. Since meeting with Mr. Harding, things have changed at New Searles, and I understand that the administration is moving forward with installing playground equipment in the same playground. But due to the rules outlined in the Eagle Project workbook, my project must be a standalone entity, and therefore I cannot collaborate with the New Searles Playground project. I only have until my 18th birthday to complete this project. As I get older and enter my junior year, my music commitments, being a member of the junior ROTC program here at North, and being a staff member at the BSA's National Youth Leadership Training, as well as maintaining all A's, I need to get this project done sooner or later.
Sounds like you're busy.
Very much so. This project began almost 2 years ago now when I met with Mr. Harding, the then principal of New Searles, and I also met with the PTO. Mr. Harding became the champion for this project, and with his support and the support of the PTO, I began my fundraising efforts based on their recommendations. The effort lasted 15 months, and in that time, I only raised around $350 for a donor board. But I soon realized that it wasn't going to work, and I needed to find another means of fundraising. Being a member of the Nashua High School South Concert Choir, Chorale, and Jazz Choir, however, I came up with the idea to do a musical cabaret. I discussed this with my parents. They thought it was a great idea. I then met with the choir director at South, Mr. Baraskis, and the principal at South, Mr. Richards, and got their support. I went to a New Searles PTO meeting, pitched my idea for this cabaret, and got their support as well. And then on May 25th of this year, I put together a 2-hour cabaret show that included 2 acts involving 12 performers and refreshments galore. The apple crisp especially was a hit. Yes. The performers ranged from middle schoolers to high schoolers to even college students that agreed to help me. Two were Nashua High South alumni who are at Plymouth State studying music. 5 of the performers were alumni from New Searles, and 1 was a choir member at Pinkerton Academy in Derry. My goal for that night was to raise $1,800, which would probably get my project done. And to my surprise, I was fortunate enough to raise over $2,400 on that one night. And when combined with the donations I received already and what I received afterwards, I have a total of $3,000 ready for this project.
Good for you.
Thank you. In order to recognize all of those who donated, my plan is now to have a plaque instead of a donor board that I hope to have hung either in the lobby or in the office at New Searles. And then on Monday, July 15th of this year at 11 a.m., I met with Mr. Smith and formally presented this proposal to him. We discussed this at length, and at the time, he gave his support to move forward. Mr. Smith has been instrumental in assuring that I can build at New Searles, and for that, I'm very grateful. Thank you. But as you can see in the information you received, I would like to build 2 sensory boards to develop the fine motor skills, a 10-foot covered picnic table that is handicap accessible, and a gross motor skills prop instead of the game table. The sensory boards, I have the structure of it built. All that needs to be done is installed and have the gadgets and things attached to them on build day, as well as the other phases such as the table and the motor skills prop will be built on site. My work plan is outlined in your package, and following that structure, I know I can complete this work in 1 full workday. The volunteers are coming from my families in my scout troop, my own family, and friends. And if you are interested in helping, I would be happy to have your help as well. With your permission, I'm hoping to build on Saturday, September 28th, 2019, as my volunteers work during the week. With all of those who have said they will help, I believe I will have 20 to 25 volunteers working on the individual projects on build day. I also plan to reach out to local restaurants for food donations to feed everyone as well. I respectfully request permission to move forward with my project and to use the school cafeteria and bathrooms on my build day in order to provide this educational opportunity for the students at New Searles Elementary School. That was another one of those things that Mr. Harding had said that I would be able to do, but due to the changes, I figured I'd ask.
Okay.
And if I can't use the building on build day, I will have to rent 3 porta potties, male, female, and handicapped, and generators in order to complete my build. These items were not accounted for in my financial plan, and they will end up eating into my build fund instead of a separate cost. And it will approximately cost $300 to rent for the porta potties, and then $250 to $500 to rent generators needed for the construction.
Wow. You're quite a fundraiser.
Yes.
Good for you. Good for you. This is a very worthwhile project. I have one question. If they use the cafeteria, will they have to have custodial service there?
Yes. We'll have to have a custodian there if you're going to use the building. Now, using the bathrooms is a lot easier because you can just use the bathrooms. Cafeteria, we might have to look into that. When you say the cafeteria, the tables or the...
Just the main room, not the kitchen. So We'll probably bring our own tables to set up in there. We just wanted a nice, cool place to get out of the sun and all the weather and whatnot so that the volunteers can eat.
All right, now that, I think that would be fine using the space, and you could use the tables that are in there. As long as you weren't going to use the kitchen, that would complicate it, I think. But if you're not going to use the kitchen, I think you'll be fine.
Right, we just wanted to use the main room.
Okay.
I have a question. I know that New Searles is here for their playground, and you can't incorporate your project into the playground, but will it be close enough to the playground that if teachers were out there with students for recess, would they be able to go over and use the sensory?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
They would, okay.
It would be, my project would be put into the same playground space as the New Searles Playground project will be put into.
Oh, super, super. Are there any questions from board members? Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. My question is in your line of questioning, so I'm still not clear. Will we need to have a custodian there? Could we just have like a administrative person open the building for them? Like, what exactly is needed, and is that voluntary, or is it something extra?
I would say in the cafeteria, since you're serving food and you have 20-plus people, we're required to have a custodian per their union contract.
Their contract, okay.
What we could do is if we know what time, see if we can keep the time period to a 3-hour time slot, then we would just have, it's a 3-hour minimum overtime. And will you be there during the day otherwise? Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Talbot, for volunteering on a Saturday.
Thank you. Follow-up, what would be the cost of 3 hours for a custodian?
We generally use a figure of $100. I think it's a little bit less than that, but that's a good budget figure.
Will that fit into your budget?
It should, yes.
A lot better than 500 to three-quarter?
Yes.
That's good, that's good. Mr. Mosher, do you have any questions?
I am considering this thing because I've been looking at his plan and the and his outline and for the costing and so on. Yeah, and I'm quite impressed with it for the Eagle for the Eagle plan. I think that's quite well done. And if everything goes according to the plan that he has, it should be quite a wonderful project. And I think that we should go for it.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Raymond?
Thank you, sorry, I have another one. Do you have a rain date?
My rain date will hopefully probably be the following week after the 28th.
Okay. And then I just wanted to say how impressed I am with the thoroughness and detail of your plan. I mean, you even have an organizational breakdown of who's going to do what, and it's very ambitious, and I think it's wonderful. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Ditto to that. I'm really impressed with the details in here, your work you've done. No wonder you have straight A's. Good for you. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Mr. Guarino.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Connor. This is the second Eagle project from this troop. There's probably been other Eagle projects, but there was another one previous from the same troop, and we've had only good things to say about that, the buddy bench that was built. I want to thank Connor for all his hard work, and I'm going to move to approve Boy Scout Eagle project at New Searles with permission to use New Searles facilities on Bill Day.
Mr. Moser?
I agree. Second it.
Okay. Roll call.
Okay. On the motion to approve Boy Scout Eagle project, Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
And congratulations, Connor. This is a great project for so many students at New Searles, And I wish you luck, and if I have time, I will stop down. I don't know about swinging a hammer or lifting logs, but I'll stop by if I can. So thank you for all you're doing for our children.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much for your time and allowing me to appear before you.
And will there be any apple crisp there that day?
I'll make sure of it, yes.
Okay.
I'd like to add one thing.
Yes, Mr. Mosher.
As a former scout myself, and being in Brooklyn, we didn't have any schools to build projects for, but we had projects that we did at Madison Square Garden and what they call a Scoutorama. And that was really involved and was wonderful. What an experience.
Oh, good. And now, as the New Searles Parade continues, we're going to have the New Searles Playground project with us.
I was just going to pass around the book.
Okay. Nice. And we have Principal Helene Talbert here and the head of her PTO.
Yes, Jolene Neisel, the PTO president.
Great. Okay, if you want to tell us a little bit about your project.
Yes, good evening. We are basically piggybacking off of Connor's project. We've had a few years that we've needed a new preschool playground, and we've wanted to replace it for a long time. We've been fortunate enough this year to raise more funds than we thought we ever would be able to in a year, and we're hoping to be able to finally put these funds to use towards the new preschool playground.
Great, great. You have to be careful, you don't want to break another knee over there, so please be careful.
I will not be
You
using
will
the
not be there
hammer.
on build day.
Mrs. Talbot.
We will not allow her.
Okay, are there any questions from anybody up here? Right?
Thank you. I always have lots of questions. This is wonderful, and I love the proposal. I'm curious about the before picture playground equipment. Does that stay? Is it getting donated someplace else? What happens to it?
So when I came to I was going to say Fairgrounds, New Searles, there were 5 preschools, and the playground, that's all donated, very old material. To be perfectly honest with you, when I first came to New Searles, I thought it looked more like I want to be nice about it, but like a junkyard. All that equipment needs to go. I wouldn't even donate it. It's very old.
Okay.
So, no.
Well, I'm excited. The other question I had was regarding dates, because I didn't see those in my packet, and maybe I just overlooked them.
We haven't ordered, we wanted to come to this meeting before we ordered it. So Sean thinks we can get it done before the winter. I think he said 2 to 4 weeks for delivery. So as long as we beat the frost, hopefully sometime October is what I hope.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Tim?
Oh, yes, this is a great project, and it's looked great. I do have a question about the grounds. Underneath the material, is the grounds going to be replaced also?
It
With
is.
Okay, great.
It is. It's they're gonna add to it. They're gonna keep what they have and then add to it.
Okay.
Anybody else? What a nice playground you're building for your students, and what a generous community you have. I know you
Absolutely.
said you exceeded your fundraising goal, and Connor exceeded his. So, to the New Searles community, thank you for stepping up and being so generous for our students.
Thank you.
And when you're done, I'll come down and
Okay.
try to go down that slide.
Good luck.
Yeah. Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
On the motion to approve the New Searles Playground project, Ms. Ode,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Congratulations, and thank you for all you're doing for the kids. righty. Oh, next on the agenda is the gardens at Ledge Street, the Learning Garden on Ledge Street.
Yeah, so we have Justin Monroe here to speak to that. You have the info in your package, and he'll fill everyone in if you haven't read it already.
Hi, good evening.
Good to have you here. If you want to speak a little bit about your project, I know you sent us a very nice informational packet on it,
Yes.
and thank you. I really enjoyed reading it.
Super. Yeah, I'd love to elaborate and answer any questions. So the organization that I work for is Grow Nashua. I'm the executive director of that organization. We've been around for 4 years, and this will be this proposal here that we're looking to share and start with our community will be the 7th garden that we have established in the community. Most of the spaces that we have created these gardens are in neighborhoods similar to Ledge, where the families are in a food desert. So our proposal here on the front page is a sketch of the garden space, and the garden space, families are able to create food that will sustain them. We teach programs on how to grow your own food, how to cook your own food. We try to kind of complete that full circle so that people are not only learning the skills to grow it, but also how do you take that food and then prepare it for your family. So we've been working on kind of getting that cohesion between neighborhoods and the schools and the communities. Our last project was over at Dr. Crisp Elementary, and a lot of the families that grow it's also a great reason and interaction for the school and to have in a positive way with parents as they're growing their food. And then it takes a lot of the pressure off of the teachers because the food that's actually being grown is being grown by your community. And then you have this lush garden that you can use as a learning garden for the students.
Great. What I thought was real interesting here is you brought in the senior center, the senior housing that is right next door.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, what a nice combination.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that space, that building that's next door, Davidson Landing, is a low-income senior housing unit. So they're in the same boat of being food insecure, and especially on the nutrient-dense foods. And Ledge Street already has a relationship with Davidson Landing and the seniors there. I think they have like a thing that they do around the holidays where they kind of exchange letters and they do some the kids make things for the seniors and the seniors do something in return. So they have somewhat of a relationship already established. But both organizations, the principal Chaz Miller as well as kind of the lead people over at Davidson, were interested in how do we maybe have more spots where the seniors can be involved and help out. And they were also interested in donating. So growing, I think, is also a social thing, getting out of the house, doing something, being mobile, moving your body. So a lot of the seniors that were there had expressed they would like to be able to give produce, and quite nicely the principal had the idea of, it would be great if we could have, if there was a way where we could give out some of the excess food that was grown there to our students. And so I said, the seniors actually were interested in growing to give, which was pretty cool. They actually, all the seniors that we had spoken with were all very interested in doing that, which is kind of unique. A lot of times in a lot of our gardens, people are growing to feed their family and their kids at home. So this was kind of it could be a pretty unique cohesion for that neighborhood. And
Win
really
for everybody.
Yeah, and it really would use a space that's not, Mr. Donovan and Mr. Smith and I went down there the other day. The space isn't used for anything, and it would be a lovely space for people to kind of have as a space for the community to use.
Nice. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm looking at the diagram here. What are the size of the raised beds?
The raised beds are 4 by 12s in that diagram.
4 by 12?
Yep. And we've We've also done we also did a soil test on that space to see if the soil was safe for growing, which it is. So we can
very
grow.
good. I'm impressed with 4x12. That's a good size.
Yeah, it's nice. It's big enough where a family can grow enough food to make a dent in their grocery bill, but it's not too much to take on as too much of a responsibility that can overwhelm. What we've found over the last 4 years, what we've learned is that a lot of families come back year after year, and if they prove that they can handle one, then next year we say, well, would you like 2? And then the next year we say, oh, would you like 3 or 4? And if they continue to do it, and they have a family, many of our families have 5 children at home, this is something that can really put a dent. If you can manage 5 beds, that's going to put a dent in your grocery bill.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I'm impressed with the 4x12 because I've had occasion to work around the raised beds before, and there's a remarkable amount of things that you can grow there.
Yes.
Very remarkable.
Yes, yeah, and it also, the 4x12s are a little bit bigger, so they require a little less lumber, which means you get just more bang for your buck.
Where are you going to get the water to?
We buy all of our stuff through Nashua Lumber. They're a great partner of ours. They pre-cut stuff, so we have all nice, clean right angles, and they're a great partner. They deliver it for free. It's been a really solid partnership with them.
That's good. But what about water?
Water right now. So we just put in a request for with DigSafe to see where the lines are on that property. So what we've done in the past, in many of our locations, we don't have water access, so we bring in tanks. So we'll have a 375-gallon water tank, which is just a see-through square, and we'll put that on site. We actually use, in the beds, we use wicking irrigation, which uses so much less water than hand watering or hose watering. And what it does is it actually, you have a bucket in the middle of, using the raised bed for an example, you put 2 to 3 buckets in the middle of that bed, and then you run, it's easier to show on a diagram, but if you can visualize ropes running in both directions in a 12-foot bed, and what happens is when you run it all the way through, and we run 12 of those ropes, the plants actually have capillary action where they can suck through those ropes out of, the ropes are sitting in these buckets filled with water, and they can actually suck what they need. So the great thing about it is that the plant just takes what it needs. All you have to do as a grower is to actually fill up the buckets, which also encourages your neighbors to help out. It's a lot easier to fill somebody's bucket than it is to stand there with a watering pail and water your neighbor's bed for, 10 minutes. So, but the other thing that it does is it's a much more efficient use of water. So we were also talking to Davidson Landing to see what they have for water access that they can share with us, because we just need to fill up our tanks.
Have you given any thought to rain recycling?
We'd love to, yes. Yeah, there was another, there was an interest from Assistant Superintendent McKinney about trying to, up in Concord, there's a learning lab that they have where they use for some of the students in the Concord School District, where they actually have both a space for like kind of a learning space that can be used, as well as a space where it could be used to potentially store some supplies that could be used for this type of programming. Because as we're building these in more of the schools, we're doing more programming during the school day and in the after-school programs, as well as for like PAL and for Girls Inc. and those programs. So there's materials that could be shared. So he had mentioned something about that and kind of looking at that as a long-term future goal. But that could be something where rain catchment could be created off of the top of a tin roof. for example. That would be a great way to do it. And even that, in this drawing on the third page, there's extra room that's not being used that does slope downward, and actually, now that you're mentioning it, you probably could put a low water catchment on this, and actually catch some of that just with a tin. So definitely, it's an idea to explore. We're always, we get creative with every site that we go to, and we haven't been stumped yet.
Very good. You know, I was thinking, just crossed my mind because my family are all farmers.
Yeah, water's the key.
New York. And one of the things that we had that before they had put in the, electricity and pumps and things like that, was we had pitcher pumps that you could use to pull water out of the ground.
Oh, right.
And then to pails or barrels, and then use that for watering the gardens. And the family was quite successful with that. And just wondering about the water table around that area, if it's conducive to putting in the 1 or 2 pitcher pumps.
That'd make my job easier. Pitcher pumps.
Huh?
I have never. We haven't used a pitcher pump at one of the gardens yet, but I'll look into it, see what that's all about.
Yeah, because you get 1 or 2 of them in there, then just by using your arm and pumping, that you can get a heck of a lot of water out of it.
I have to get the Eagle Scouts back here to do the pumping. I think I don't know if I'm up for all that pumping. Maybe
Well, make sure they get you some apple crisp too.
Raymond?
Thank you. I am so excited about this project. I've been excited about all the garden projects that have happened. I love gardening for food, not flowers, but like vegetable gardening. And I just love how it connects the community to the schools and to our kids, and I just think it's really healthy. I have a couple questions. One is this part of the compost program? And can it be, there's a program in Nashua, and I forget who runs it, where they collect like your table scraps, and then at the end of the year, you get like a bag of compost. And so I'm wondering about that. And I'm wondering about seeds or baby plants. Where do those come from? Because sometimes they're not that expensive, but it can be difficult for someone who's never gardened before to know what they need.
Yes. Yep. So in answer to the first question, the compost program, that is us.
Oh,
we
yay.
run that. So we use the food scraps. We do curbside collection, which is basically people who are at their house, and we all have food scraps at the end of the day. Whether it's stuff after you're making dinner, you got a big pile of veggies after you made beef stew, and you got just ends of everything. All that stuff gets composted, and we turn that back into nutrient-dense compost that we can then use in the gardens. So not only is that program diverting a lot of food waste from our landfills that are filling up rapidly. I mean, that's been in the newspaper quite a bit. In our first year, we've collected over 40,000 pounds of food scraps just from residential customers, and now we're starting to move into commercial customers. So yes, we do see the value in that compost coming back, because it's just a full circle solution. It takes all that waste that's going to go in our landfills, and if it goes in our landfills, it causes methane gas release, which is a real problem. But instead, it comes in to us. We do the right thing with it. We turn it back into compost. Then we use it in our gardens, and there's nothing better for your plants than fresh compost. There's nothing you can buy in the store that's better than that. So it's a very closed system for us. And then in answer to the second question, we've had an amazing, extremely fortunate partnership with Dave Ord from Lowell Farm. He's a super generous person, and he has provided seedlings to us for the last 4 years. So,
Wow.
which is incredible, because if you're first time learning how to garden and you kill your first set of plants, don't worry, we got your back, you know? And Dave is, I remember the first time I went to Dave and went into his greenhouses, and he's got these huge greenhouses, and there's so many seedlings, and I remembered, you know, I buy plants for my own garden, and I know how, like, you know, you buy 10 plants or so, and it adds up. And so the first day I was there, I had picked, I had 20 families. Actually, we had 20 families on the first year that we were doing this, and I was like, well, I'm gonna need a lot of plants. So I'm up to, like, I got, you know, 100 and something seedlings, and I'm feeling like, oh boy, hope this isn't too many. And he looked at me on the way out, and he said, hey, get some good stuff. He said, make sure you come back. Get what else you need. And I was like, wow. So he's just been like that, 100, like, just so giving. So, which has been great, because that just makes for more success for people that are growing their own food, to be able to say, what do you need? When do you need it? Can I show you how to plant it? And then plants are so forgiving that as long as you can get people to get their hands and put them in the dirt, and then they water them a few times, and they keep coming back throughout the season here and there, your plants will survive and they will produce. And when people see it produce, then they're like, oh, well, I didn't think I could do that, but I did it. And so now I can do it again. And then UNH Extension has been amazing. They have a seed donation program as well. There's like 3 other programs that do seed donation. And that is, again, just keeps the cost. Our cost for all of our growers is 0. We don't charge for anything. So this is all things that we fundraise for, and we write grants for, and we support, and are very careful to kind of measure the supply and demand in regards to who wants space and who needs space, because we don't want to have, I don't want to be just running raised beds myself. So it's something that, you know, at some point we'll hit the ceiling of what people want, but we're nowhere close to that. We fill them up with nothing more than just word of mouth at this point.
That's wonderful. A big thank you to Mr. Ord over at Lowell Farms. That's where I get my own plants.
Nice, good, yeah.
And they're wonderful. So that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And not only thank you to David Ord, but thank you to Nashua Lumber for helping you out with that project. It's nice when the community is supportive of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thank you for all you're doing for our families and for our seniors. It's a nice combination there. Anybody else? Okay, looking for a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay.
On the motion to approve gardens at Ledge Street, Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you,
great.
Justin,
Thank
and
you so much.
congratulations, and good luck with this.
Great, thank you.
Wow, all kinds of good things tonight.
I'll be over and I'll visit New Searles soon, too.
Okay. Okay, and now we have Dr. Bastonis here for the CTE website contract. Do you guys want me to see? Wherever you're comfortable.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
See you.
Good to see you, too.
I like your shirt.
Thank you. Do you want me to introduce sort of why I'm here? Okay.
Sure.
So, can't remember when, but recently you approved us to hire a consultant to oversee the creation of the website project. So I'm just going to remind you of that. So we received funding not through the Perkins grant. So we wrote an additional grant to receive funding to create a regional website. So it's Hudson, Milford, and Nashua. And we're super excited about it because we're hoping to break that stigma that you're very familiar with around CTE, and to create some common space for calendars, to show which which courses are open so that we can have a better exchange of students. So along those lines, we have a company that we'd like to hire to create the website, and that company was the one who designed our brochures. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. Along these lines, we have our brochure now translated into Spanish, so we'll be putting that out. And the company would also help us put us, I guess it's called a mirrored website in Spanish as well, so that we could have a Spanish version of the website along with the brochure. So the company that we want to hire is called, it's in your, I think you have a packet, Square Spot. And the reason that we'd like to use them is Salem and Concord have worked with them. We've worked with them to design our brochure. The consultant we hired recommended them. They're giving a discount to us, a pretty substantial discount, and I can get you those specific numbers if you'd like to see those. We can use material that we've already created, so any writing that we've already done in here can be migrated over to the website. Any photos that we've already paid for can be migrated over to the website very easily. What else did I have notes here? Oh, and I just wanted to remind everyone this is not contracted through Perkins, so it in no way impacts funding that would be spent on Nashua students. This is a whole nother website grant that we wrote for this project. And the directors in Hudson and Milford have approved using this company as well. So yeah, there you go. Any questions?
Well, anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes, I do. It sounds like a great project, but is this a yearly cost on this project, the upkeep?
No, absolutely not. So it's a one-time fee to build the website, and then what would happen is it's regional. So the directors have all agreed that there's a very minimal cost each year. I think it's less than $600, something like that. That's going to move around each year to the different regional centers. So. And we wrote a grant to create it, and David Moore's only a one-time, he would oversee that. We'd create it, and then it would just, that $600 would be shared throughout the region each year.
One other question.
Yeah, sure.
Who will be maintaining this?
Okay, so
website?
that's great, Gloria. So after it's created, we're gonna basically each year, like this year Nashua will maintain it, and then the next year Hudson will take it, and then Milford will take it. And we're just gonna share that because we are a regional CTE center, and we'd love to have you guys. We have regional advisory board meetings twice a year, which everyone is welcome to. If you wanna learn more about that, we're gonna be talking about the regional website at our next advisory board meeting.
Okay. Ms. Raymond, did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to say this is great because I think Alverne is breaking ground soon on a CTE expansion. So it would be really nice to be able to advertise that to our students as well once that gets going. So yay.
Yeah, and you're exactly right because they have programs. So for auto, for example, now that we only have one teacher, they have a program there. We didn't know last year that their program wasn't full. We could have just sent students. We should do a better job of sharing the resources. And if we have a common website, then we can really share those resources instead of living in isolation.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I just want our students to be able to have the benefit of all of the CTE programs.
Exactly.
And I think people know that, like, you know, the veterinary stuff is over at Alverne, but that's not all they have. And, you know, Milford has things as well, but I don't know all of them off the top of my head.
Yeah, Milford has a great program too in manufacturing, so different than ours, but, you know, we could really do some sharing there, so.
Great, thank you.
Question?
Mr. Moser, do you have a question?
I do. I'm looking at the thing and I see the Nashua, Milford, Hudson, and Keene.
Yeah.
I can understand Nashua, Milford, and Hudson. Keene seems to be a bit far away, but I also in the Peterborough area, the Conval. Have they been contacted at all to join in on this?
Absolutely. So I live in Peterborough, Mr. Mosher. So and my husband teaches at Conval, so we're very supportive of that district. But so here's what happened. The regional website, we got the funding for that, and then we got additional funding for websites. Each high school center would get its own website that would then match and carry sort of, if you can think of it as like a brand, CTE brand. Our hope is that eventually all CTE centers will have access because we're going to create these as templates. So eventually we will all match. We'll all have one kind of brand, and that's how we can start to address the stigma around CTE. So our region agreed to do it, and then the CTE director in Keene said, because we got such a discount, he said, oh, my superintendent gave me permission. Can we partner with you too? And, it just seemed It's not taking anything away from Nashua to partner with them. We did reach out to Conval and Peterborough, and they couldn't get permission in the time of the deadline, but the reduction in fee to make these websites carries on indefinitely. So any other CTE center after this who wants to use the template, it's created, the content is created, everything's ready for them to use. So Nashua's really gifting the whole state at this point.
Fantastic. I've been to Conval some years ago for some business courses that they were offering, and I was very impressed with it. I'm surprised I didn't see it on here, but I understand they didn't have, they didn't have it on time. So I imagine that they will be coming into that also. So I like this very much. It looks very good. I will support it.
Thank you.
What I can say is Mr. Moore and Square Spot did an absolutely amazing job on the brochure. So
I agree, Dottie.
no questions about his work. I do have one question, though. When parents or students go to the district school website, Nashua School District, will there be a link to the CTE website?
Absolutely, and we've
Okay.
talked to Stacy Hines about that already, and that will be ready to go. And actually, the problem is there's like 3 CTE NTC websites right now. No one kind of knows which one to go to. Oh, that's okay. But this will be the one that the district will direct you to. And like I said, there'll be a Spanish version. We'll have a Spanish version of the brochure. So we're really hoping this will become the exemplar, actually, for the whole state.
Well, okay. Thank you. What an excellent way to communicate with all the people in the area. Thank you so much for leading this. Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
On the motion to approve the CTE website contract with Square Spot Design, Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Congratulations, and thank you for all of your work doing this.
Thank
I see this as a real plus for not only our district, but for all the districts that are involved and for so many students. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you. Next on the agenda is, no, we have more contracts, right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll finish up with the contracts.
Okay, so there are 5 more contracts. I'll just run through them quickly. The first one is with the Youth Council. It's for $50,000. It's been the same cost for the last 3 to 4 years. And basically, it's to provide a student assistant counselor that splits time between North and South high schools. So back a few years ago, it was approved in the budget. It was added in the budget at the end. It was put in the budget. It was put in as a personnel item. The following year, since we didn't end up hiring a personnel, we had used youth council. It fell out and the high schools had to pay for it themselves. Then this year, the fiscal year 20 budget, we said, let's put it back so the high schools don't have to actually pay out of their allocations for this. So that's what this is. I think it's worked well. If you speak to the 2 high school principals, I think they're happy with the services provided by the individual sent by the youth council.
Okay. Do you
want me to run
us
through them all
separate-
first?
Why don't we run through them all, and then we can vote on them as a bundle, maybe?
Sure,
Or-
I
okay.
think that makes sense. Okay, the second is also with the youth council, and it's for a suspension center for the 5th through 8th grade students. The cost is the same as it was last year. They have a site. We bring lunches down there. The students that are suspended for whatever reason have a place, so instead of being at home playing video games or out on the streets, they're at the youth council where there's someone there to work with them to make sure that teachers can send work, they can keep up with their work, or they can work on some work that they maybe have fallen behind on. So I think it's been a pretty successful program over the last few years.
I have a question, and you probably don't know the answer, but do you have any idea how many students were, I guess I could say, took advantage of the youth council?
We do get that data. I can get that data from Mr. Chopa. I do not have it, but I can certainly get it for you.
Can you get it and just?
Yeah, I'll get
send
it
us-
before it goes to the full board, if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that varies over time.
Yeah, it certainly does.
I'm sure it does, but I just would like to have an idea of how many students used it last year. Okay,
All right, the next two contracts are both with the Nashua Adult Learning Center / Clearway, which is the alternative school. The first one is, we have two contracts with them. The first one is for 50 slots at a cost of $5,902 per slot. So we can send up to 50 students from our two high schools to the Clearway program, which is a much smaller environment. It's over near Dr. Crisp. It works out well for certain students. And if you remember a couple of years ago, a lot of them showed up and talked about how they really enjoyed the program, and it was what they needed to get through high school. So this year, there's no increase in what it was last year. So the first one, the $295,093, we pay them, we take that amount, we divide it by 10, we pay them so much a month, each one of the September through June months. The second one is the special ed one. Now, the special ed one is for up to 15 students. There is a significant increase in that this year. Typically, what Clearway has done is taken the state rate per student and given us a 27% discount. This 1 year, this is for 1 year only, the suggestion is that we would only get a 20% discount this year instead of a 27% discount. So the total increase in the contract for this school year versus last school year is approximately $46,000. Had they done the calculation the same way as they've been doing it the last few years using the 27% discount, the increase would have been $15,000. So this is an additional $31,000 increase. Now, the good news on that is that we received from the state, there was a number of dollars that weren't spent on the IDEA grants from the federal government over the last 10 years. So the state got together and said, hey, we'd like to keep this money. Is there any way we could continue to use this money? They worked with the federal government. Based on some agreements, they then said, okay, you can reallocate this. So we received and we've got to spend the money between now and I believe it's the end of September of 2020, we have about $700,000. And it has to be spent on IDEA, special ed type things, but it is a one-time thing. So I've been working with the special ed department, and obviously you give someone $700,000 to spend, they have plenty of ideas on how to spend it. But this $31,000 will come from that, okay? Then they will revert back next year to the 27%, at least that's what we have a verbal understanding. I will also, with the special ed director and maybe a couple other people, meet with Clearway to say, okay, going forward, is there a better way to fund this program? Because pretty much at this point, we're funding the whole program. I think they need to look at grants. I think they need to maybe bring some other students in from other towns, because the whole idea of us just funding it, we can just do the program ourselves, I mean, at some point. So there's been a lot of discussion about it. We're going to speak with them. This way the program stays in place for this year. And it also, I think, gives our special ed department more time to work with them so that the needs of the special ed children are being met on a more, I don't know, maybe consistent basis. So that's the two Clearway ones.
I
you have
have
any questions on those?
Yes, I do. I know in the past, there have been times where students went to Clearway and then for some reason came back to the high school, and often the slots were not all filled. Do you know, have we improved the information we're getting back from Clearway as to how many openings are there for our students when students do leave the program there?
We do get a report on both programs, the special ed and let's call it the typical student program. Each year, to start the year, we'll typically start between 30 and 40 on the typical student program and go up to 50. So we are paying for spots we don't have. Clearway says will send us more kids, but some of those kids aren't identified yet that they want to go to Clearway. You know, because there are students that go there and then they'll spend a few weeks and realize, no, I'd rather be back at the high school. So there is some back and forth. I'm not exactly sure how much of that, but there is some of it. But we work to send as many students there, but the goal is not to just, well, let's make sure we always have 50 students, because if it's not the right place for the student, we're not going to send them there. So, but the whole thing about the slots, I mean, and that's why I want to talk about the whole thing about the slots is they need that much money to run the program. That's what that is. We get kind of tied up on the slots. They need to run the program. They need that much money because they have to have teachers and benefits and things like that. If we're not using the 50 slots, you know, at some point then at times we're using the 50 slot, maybe in November, December we are, and then it might drop down, then it might go back up. But in reality, what we're paying for in this contract is we're guaranteeing them, you know, $295,000 or $353,000.
Well, I know several of us went to the graduation there, and I think they had around 30 graduates just from the senior class. So I'm assuming that we're using most of the slots, but my understanding in the past was sometimes students would leave and come back to the high school, and the high school really wasn't aware of how many open slots. They had students that might have wanted to go, but they didn't know there were slots open there. So I was just wondering if the communication has improved.
I think it's improved. I think it can be improved more.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair?
3, 4. Yes,
I have a
Ms.
question.
Van Twyver.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan, since we had the big to-do a couple of years ago with Clearway, do you have any conversations with them that they're trying to increase other revenues from themselves? I mean, we can't, I don't suppose we can go on spending all this money all the time, nor do I think it's fair.
We have had some discussions. I wouldn't call them fruitful, but we have had some discussions. I'm hoping during this school year that they will become fruitful. I did speak with them about a week or so ago, and they do have some plans that they mentioned in that meeting. So hopefully that can really get the ball rolling, and we can meet with them 2 or 3 times during this year so that next year there can be maybe some changes to the funding.
I would hate to see a situation happen again to them where they're dependent upon us to keep themselves going, in case we have some kind of problem that might hinder, our support of them. It seems to me that they should be looking for other ways to bring in revenue so they don't feel so dependent upon us. And we don't feel, obligated to keep them going.
And I think that's the plan, and hopefully we will make that. There's been discussions for the last 2 or 3 years around it, but really nothing's happened. I think this year it's something that I'll put on my plate and at least get the discussions going.
Plans are no good unless you implement, so
Exactly.
push them.
Okay, and the next item is the Medicaid billing contract.
Okay, and the last one is there's a group called MSB Consulting Group. That stands for Multi-State Billing. They're the ones that do all the Medicaid billing. A lot of our students there's the federal program where we can get reimbursed by the government for certain costs associated with mostly special ed students. It's a very complicated process. They're changing things all the time. So when I first got here, and since I've been here, when I first got here, it was a 10% that they would collect, and over time, we sort of negotiated it down. Then we agreed to use their online services, so we dropped it down to 8%. Now they're offering, and at last year we were at 7. Now they're offering a 3-year deal at 7% each year. So they do all the billing, they bring in all the funds for us. Once the funds are in is when we make the payment of the 7%. We don't pay it until we've received the funds in the bank. We've collected between 1.7 and 1.9 million the last 3 or 4 years using this program. And the other thing, they provide audit services and they provide legal services if there's any issues. Some of the smaller school districts try to do this themselves. The problem is finding the right person that understands all the details and doing the billing on something as complicated as this. So I think, in my opinion, this is a good idea to use, sort of a group of, let's say, experts to do it for us instead of trying to always find someone to fill the slot. I think it would be a difficult slot to fill. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that do this. There are, like I said, there is a software out there that you could purchase and then try to do it yourself. But then again, you got to pay for the software, then you have to have the person. I think this is sort of a catch-all, and I think it's a good idea. It's been working well for us.
Any questions?
Comment.
Mr. Mosher?
Yeah, in my tenure on the board, that we've agreed that because of the complexity of the billing process with the Medicare, Medicaid, that it has been very beneficial to the district to contract this out. And for the price that we paid, it's well worth it to have them experts do this and also to represent you. So, good thing.
Money well spent. I agree with you, Mr. Mosher. Okay. We want a motion for the 5 contracts that were brought forward tonight.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, roll call?
On the motion to approve the 5 contracts, Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay. And the next item is unpaid school lunch balances. I think Ms. Van Twyver requested this.
I believe it, was it, or was it? Okay. So there was a request to go back and say, okay, what have been the school lunch balances? I went back for the last 4 years. I sort of broke it out by level, elementary, middle, and high school. So it was $6,231 in 16, and 17 it went down to $5,129, and 18 up to $7,912, and then 19 down to $5,655. Interestingly enough, the average for the 4-year period is $6,231, which is exactly the number it was in 16. So I thought my sheet was wrong. I said, how can that be? But it was.
Whoa.
So, and you can see the breakout. You'll notice that the high schools used to be much higher, but we sort of had a change in our student meal policy that was put together a few years ago. High school students can no longer, they can't have negative balances, and now we do have the Meals Matters program now, which has changed some things and given students that maybe don't have the money to get meals, so that's a great thing. But basically, you'll notice the last 2 years, they've been 0. So it's between the policy change and the Meals Matters. The biggest chunk is obviously the elementary schools, because 2 things happen in elementary schools. A, every student receives a meal. And the other thing is, a lot of times, the student isn't aware, or the family isn't aware whether they're eligible for free and reduced lunch on day one. So we start sort of giving them lunch, and then sometimes they're not, sometimes they are. But trying to track down the families to pay for those, whether they're eligible or not, can be difficult. So that's where we sort of end up with some balances. Recently, last spring, we had a review by the state, and they requested that we put in our policy, which we did at the end of June each year, delinquent debt becomes bad debt. What can we do? If we want, we can we could hire a collection agency to chase after our parents. I don't think that's a great idea. I'm not 100% sure collectible this truly is anyway. So I think we do, though, the food service department does send home emails, send home information to people to say you're behind, you need to catch up and things like that. And I think a lot of people do follow up, but some just don't. And so that at the end of each year, these amounts is a charge to the operating budget. So it's part of the closing process. That's what we've done. Other than last year, we've had enough money each year to cover these, so.
Okay, Ms. Van Twyver.
Thank you, Ms. Oden. This came about because Philadelphia, I believe it was, had a $20,000 problem, and they were going to take the kids away from them and put them someplace, I guess. And I thought that was rather outrageous, but I was just interested in knowing how much money that that this district is experiencing. And the fact of it is, these could be people who could pay if they were diligent about paying their bills. It's not like it's all the free meal kids that are causing this problem, right?
Yes, but with the free and reduced, the thing with the federal government program is they're very strict with the number. So if you have, I don't know them off the top of my head, but if you have, let's say, 2 students and your income is, let's say, $36,000, if you make $500 more than that a year, you don't get anything. Mm-hmm. And if you make actually $2 over, you don't get anything. So they're very strict. And sometimes some of these families, the income kind of goes up and down, and sometimes they'll go over and under, and they only apply once a year.
Well, it's just that it's not a big figure, but it is money that could be used for other things like giving to teachers for their classrooms or something, so. It would be
it could be,
diligent
the way I look at
parents
it
to pay these bills.
it's sort of the end of the year surplus, and I'm doing that in quotes, that covers it. So it's not like we would turn around and give it to teachers at the beginning of the year because, we're not sure there'd be a surplus there.
Buy a pot for the kitchen, couldn't it? A pot or two, or a ladle, or...
Yeah, but the food service program covers all that.
Well, I'm just saying,
I know. No, you could use it for other things.
You could use that money for other things if people would be paying for their kids' lunch if they can afford it.
True.
And then they're not, if they haven't applied for free and reduced. Thank you for doing that.
Certainly.
Mr. Guarino.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I just had a thought that maybe we could think about making it easier for parents to pay because, as Ms. Van Twyver said, there's probably a lot of parents that just, put it off or something. They really can pay, but not everybody, some of these families could probably afford it, but nowadays we have so many easy ways to pay, like electronically or with apps and things like that. Maybe if we had an easier way for parents to transfer the money, just something to think about, something to put out there to think about, because I think we're still paying the old-fashioned way by writing a check and sending the check into.
No, you can, with the food service, you can put money, you can do it electronically.
Oh, you can do it electronically?
Yeah, you can do it either way.
Oh, okay.
We are very old-fashioned when it comes to paying for bus passes and things like that.
Right.
But with the food service, you can pay electronically.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes, I do PayPal, By the way, it also closed down at a specific time in the month, and you can't use PayPal. That happened to me this year. So this number may not be quite correct, that the parent couldn't pay, it's that they wasn't able to pay. So to track it down when school is closed, it was difficult to do. Need to look into that.
Okay, I'll speak with the food service crew.
Mr. Mosher, do you have anything to add?
Not really.
Okay.
I had, from my own experience and with the kids in Maine Dunstable, at one time, as I know that salaries can be, rather dynamic sometimes, and the way it goes up and down, and expenses of some medical or some other thing that can take precedence over, the school lunch. But I've had my own experience in Maine, with the kids in Maine Dunstable, and I was very pleased with the way it worked, and everything came out quite well. So yeah, I think that take into consideration the dynamics of income. That some people are going to run afoul of the thing and would rather pay for having electric rather than paying for a school lunch. So I understand that.
Okay, thank you. I would just say, looking at the sheet, the two high schools for fiscal year 18 and 19, the balance is 0. And I think we can thank the students that had the idea of Meals Matter directly for that, because that has made quite a difference. So congratulations to those students who were thinking about fellow students that weren't able to afford meals some days, or just didn't have the money that day. I have heard that there's a table where if you take something and don't want it, if it comes with your lunch, you can put it on the table. If somebody else wants it, they can pick it up. Is that true in all of the schools, like the elementary and middle schools?
Well, we are getting share tables at all our schools.
Okay.
The one thing is, though, the food service director met with the health department, and there needs to be a policy and practice put in place. So even though the table should physically be here for the start of school, until we get okay from the health department, they won't be used. So I'm guessing a 6 to 8 week period before we can do that. And I think they're looking at the types of things that you can put on these share trays. They are refrigerated, but there are a lot of rules around when someone, for example, takes a carton of milk and leaves the actual cafeteria, bringing that back in. How do we know? There are a lot of questions around it. So they're working with us, and they will not be up and running for the beginning of the year. But we do have, and I don't know all the people that help donate them. Maybe I'll bring that to the next meeting. But they won't be up and running and probably for another 6 to 8 weeks. But
Okay, thank you. Next, fiscal year 19, final year end forecast.
Okay, so the year is just about done. This is the last forecast thing we'll have at the meetings. If you see the large sheet of paper in your package and you flip to the second page, you can see that at the end of this year, after all the entries are done, there was remaining $383,000. So that's by far the most we've had in the last 6 years. Great news. And on top of that, we also were able to pay all of the out-of-district invoices in that amount. And the out-of-district invoices were like more than $1 million over budget. So between some of the savings we received on our labor costs, and I'm getting more detail on that, so maybe I'll share that next time. But that and some of the utilities and a few other things, we were able to do it. The other thing, if you look on that bottom box, back a couple months ago, we had been receiving the grants, the security grants to build vestibules at all the schools, the 80-20. So we borrowed from our capital reserve fund for that 20%. That was $140,925. Based on this result, we're going to be able to put that money back into the reserve. That's going to be done through the escrow process. I've talked to the city with the mayor and the CFO over there, so it's got to go through the process and get approved by the Board of Aldermen, but I'm expecting that they would do that. So basically, there'll be $242,000 left that will revert back to the city to help us pay down our tax rate.
Okay.
So all in all, it was, for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, it turned out to be a pretty good year. And I won't go through all the line items at this point, but if you have any questions, I could answer them.
I have one question. At the last HR committee, we had to pay a teacher, it came in July, pay a teacher for a position they had taken for the fiscal year that had already ended, and it was a little under $1,500. It was a stipend for an extracurricular activity. And Mr. Kaufman had asked, would that be a problem getting the money? I knew that we had extra, but could that money, once the book was closed on June 30th, could that money have come out of last year's budget?
Yes, if we go through a process during the month of July, any payroll that's paid in July, we take a look and say, okay, was it effectively for May or June, or is it for July? So we tag it back to the right year or keep it in the year. I mean, do we catch every single thing? Probably not, but we catch the bulk of them.
Okay, thank you.
If they were paid in, like now going forward, it might be harder to do because we've sort of stopped the process. If it's a significant number, I would try to do it, but if it were $1,500 and it was paid in August or July, I mean in August or September, it probably wouldn't happen, but in July, I'm sure we would have done it.
Mr. Donovan, can you give me that figure that we're giving back to the city once again?
$242,000.
Thank you. I hope they're very happy.
That's roundabout. There might be a few changes here and there.
Yeah, well, I hope they're very happy. I don't agree with giving it back to them, though.
Well, it's reducing the tax rate. Think of it that way. That's what it's doing.
Yes, but we crab about money in this district all the time, and it can be used for teachers and other things, so.
Right. Yeah. Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Thank you. That was my question as well. Is it possible to negotiate with the city? I'm just thinking of like our deferred maintenance budget, which poor Mr. Smith has like $100,000 and we have like $500,000 worth of deferred maintenance every year that we have to then go back and negotiate with the city. Like, is it possible to have the extra from our year like negotiated into one of those other accounts? I guess it's not extra, but, you know.
Yeah, as we go through the closing each year, if I notice we have a lot, for example, this year, we did take some money and buy chairs for the high schools.
Right.
We did take some money and buy supplies for the new science program or something. So we did probably spend around $80,000 or so that we just approved at the last minute because we didn't have lots of time, but we did cover some of those. I was concerned to cover the capital reserve. But some of these things, for example, people encumber costs. So there's a purchase order sitting out there. And then sometimes maybe they don't realize that the purchase order's out there, or the item doesn't come in, or they have an open purchase order. Mr. Smith has open purchase orders. And if they just leave them there all during July, then we just close them up and the money comes back. But I can't really count on that money coming back. I don't know until it's sort of too late. But let's suggest that we had $800,000 to $900,000 extra, and I kind of knew that in June, then yes, we can work with the city. If it's in June, we can still say, hey, it's our money, let's do something. But you'd have to spend it in June. You couldn't like say, I want to hire 3 teachers next year, let's roll it over. No, you can't do that. But if you said, Mr. Smith has a project, we want to take $250,000 to do that, and you could expend the funds relatively quickly, you could do it. Or you could do what we're doing with this 140, which is an escrow process for certain things.
All right, thank you.
By the way, did we get the tennis courts paved? I know that was an extra 15,000 than what we had anticipated.
Yes, and we put that in. I don't know if the work's done. They were supposed to be working on it. Mr. Smith? Are the tennis courts done? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then the transfer report.
Okay, we'll run through that quick. July transfer report. One thing we're working on with 2 new staff members, I have brought them in and training them. One of the things I pushed them to do is make sure people are charging to the right account. Some people budget things into one account and then say, well, that's where I budgeted, so that's where I'm going to charge it. No, we want you to budget the right thing to the right account and then move the budget if you have to. So a bunch of these entries are basically that kind of thing. The first one for Amherst Street is they didn't have anything in furniture and they decided to buy some furniture. They moved it from supplies to furniture. Same thing for Mount Pleasant, where they didn't have any money in their sort of media and furniture lines. They claimed it was just sort of a budget error. Then at the high school north, this was another item that they have membership, the NEASC membership every year. They were charging it to Ed Supplies. It's not a supply, it's a membership. So we made them do a transfer there. Ledge Street School, same thing. They didn't have enough money in furniture, so they moved it. Assistant Superintendent's Office, this is curriculum. And they had, when they budgeted their software purchase for the frontline software, which tracks all the teacher certifications and things, they didn't put the correct amount. So this is just to update it so we paid that invoice or at least put the purchase order in a couple of weeks ago. And then Nashua Athletics, once again, just getting it in the right place. They were charging it to maintenance and it's really actually equipment. So that's a quick rundown on the transfer report.
Do we need a motion, seeing where one is at almost 15,000?
Probably, yeah, just if you can approve the transfer report.
Okay. Looking for a motion to approve the transfer report.
So moved.
Second, on the motion to approve the fiscal 20 July transfer report, Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, and then the last item, the financial report for July. It's the first month of the year. We've spent 4.5% of our budget, obviously a very small amount. We haven't spent much in the way of wages because most of our employees, dollar-wise, have not started working this year yet. So you can look down and see, if you look on the far right, the percent used for each of these accounts. They're very small amounts, except for if you look at the professional and technical services. It's like 61% used so far, but most of that, they haven't actually spent the money yet. They've simply put out a purchase order / encumbered the funds. And that's because last month you approved the OT and PT contracts, so they turn around and put a purchase order in, and that sort of counts against, that's why it's such a high number, but the actual amount spent is only like 35,000 versus the amount encumbered is 1.5 million. And most of the other accounts, as you can see, very low spend at this point, except when you get to the very end, the equipment is 54% spent because that's the computer and hardware and the computer software. We pay those costs in the first month or so and use them during the year. And then the capital lease, we have 2 leases on copiers. One's a very small one, and the large one that's due typically by August 1st, so that payment's been made. Other than that, you know, we'll take a look at this in more detail as we go along, but I think 1 month is a very small piece of the pie.
Okay. Looking for a motion to accept the financial report?
Motion to approve the financial report.
Second?
Okay, roll call?
On the motion to approve the financial report, Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Donovan. Have you replaced your assistant who left us?
Yes, both have left. I've replaced both of them,
So you're full staff.
full staffed.
Thank you.
Training them as we speak.
Okay. I think we're done for the evening. Looking for a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Okay,
Okay,
roll call?
On the motion to adjourn, Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
We're adjourned at 7:27.
Okay.